There I am. Hey folks, Mr. Justin here with Secret Weapon Miniatures and another Workbench Wednesday. This week I'm actually just going to be playing around with random weathering techniques. What I have is some paint that really doesn't want to dry apparently. Let's take a look at what I've got. Oop, keyboard out of here. Wireless keyboard's the best thing I've ever put on my desk. So what I have are some armor plates I used to make for my army. So I would put these on my Lehman Russ, of course, all cast up the way they need to be. And let me get the focus where it needs to be. No autofocus, bad autofocus. Nobody asked you. All right, here we go. Yeah, so these are the armor plates I used to make. I've got a whole mess of Lehman Russ somewhere in the shop that have these on them, and I had plates that fit in here to cover that up with different symbol options, or of course the side sponsons could fit on these. But right now I just want to play with them, so I've got a green one and a tan one, and I may or may not have a yellow one at some point, because this is the one that just doesn't want to dry. It's the first time I've used that yellow rattle can, and yeah, may have the same problem with the red, but we'll take a look. Maybe by the time I'm done with the others, they'll still be dry. The red's okay. Very shiny. But I wanted to play with weathering on some different colors, because I know that the same technique is going to look and feel differently on a piece depending on its color. And of course, while I do most of my examples in this range, yeah, that's not the only thing we can do. So I wanted to play and talk about color and just weathering stuff. So I'm going to do acrylics, I'm going to play with pigments, I'm going to play with oils, and I'm just going to weather these up. In fact, I'll pull down my pencils and weather with some pencils at some point too, just to mix things up a bit, keep it real. And I'm not sure where I'm starting because I changed my mind just before the show about what I was going to do today. I was, of course, going to finish up the Stampa, but we don't need to do that on video at that point. It's just going to be me doing little tiny detail-y bits, and that's not as much fun. So let's see. Let's start with panel lining, because I've got these panel lines right here. I'm going to look at a few different techniques for panel lining. Probably the most common workaround are micron pens. I've yet to meet a painter that doesn't know this trick, but if you're one of them, awesome. Panel lines made easy. Yes, we can do our acrylic washes, we can do an oil wash, we can do an enamel wash. It's all great, but take my pen. The great thing about pens and pencils, and the reason I use them so often, is that I find, and this may surprise you, but it's easier for me to handle a pen than a paintbrush. Crazy madness, I know. Clearly I need more practice with my paintbrushes. Nice dark panel lines. And this is a 1/2 millimeter nib on the front, but you'll notice that it's not going to get into those cracks. Golly, what do I do then? Well, for this one, I'm going to have to stand up and reach a bin because I don't get to this very often. This is my Star Wars pencil. Why do I call it my Star Wars pencil? Because this is a 0.3 millimeter technical illustrator's pencil. Yeah, and it is what they used to do the panel lines in the Star Wars, the original Star Wars movies. So, got the tip from Jason Eaton. Very much grateful to him when I was working on my Perfect Grade Millennium Falcon. Lights up and everything. It's a wonderful build. Yeah, but I asked him, like, hey, what color would I use for the panel lines on this to get it correct? And he's like, pencil. So I picked up the pencil, and I can use this to get into these fine lines. Makes a great sound too, like being at the dentist. Remember to floss today. And let's say right here, all right, this little thing. Or maybe just underneath it. Or let's take the tan one and do the side panels with this. Paint's not completely dry still, not completely cured. Yeah, more cured paint than this because it's working, but it's also taking paint with it, which normally it would not do. But you can see I still get my panel lines in there. And yeah, welcome, Jordan. Thank you for tuning in. And yeah, pencils are great for that. Not just these for the panel lining, of course. But let's go back to some really simple work on this one for a minute. I'm going to grab a white watercolor pencil and do my edge highlights at the side of that. In fact, let's see what we can do to this one using only pencils and pens. It's my trick for this one. Why not? I said this morning I wanted to play. What could be more playful than goofing off with pencils and pens? It's arts and crafts time. It's because you're my Prismacolor. No wonder this isn't. You have the wrong pencil. Go away, you. Aha. All right. My white one is busted. I don't have a pencil sharpener handy. That's why I didn't notice it. Let me guess. You're going to be another not watercolor pencil, aren't you? All right, that's okay. I'll figure this out. So it's going to give me a better result with my watercolors. So we'll use those for other spots, but right now, I'm still going to use my colored pencil here, just to get my edge highlights. Won't be as durable, but that's all right. It'll work. Boom. Now I've got nice little edge highlighty things. Oh! And suddenly a pencil sharpener appears. Boop. There we are. So yeah, 1 second. I'll take my watercolor and a pencil sharpener. my wife is a middle school maths teacher, and another fun tip for you is I actually have a bag in my bin full of basing ground covers, which is nothing but a couple of emptyings from her pencil sharpener in the classroom. So all of that fine, what you call it, fine pencil shavings make a great base ground cover for basing. And yeah, Jordan, I do recommend, like, most of what I use is actually the Artist Loft watercolor pencils. This is not a high quality watercolor pencil by any stretch of the imagination, but this gives me better results than my Prismacolor colored pencils, and more durable. And well, that's good for someone to have released a line of weathering pencils. I think I picked up the whole set of these at Michael's for $5. There's a reason there's stuff like that that I just don't sell, because I'd feel kind of bad selling some of this stuff to you. But of course they did. And if they're not quality watercolor pencils, then they don't count. One of the things that bugs me about a lot of those companies out there is they don't use their product. Huh. For large props, Stephen recommends mixing up some pencil shavings with some acrylic sculpting compounds to make built-up rust. That's awesome. All right, so we've got, let's see. Let's make this a little more interesting. Right now I'm going to pull out one of my pens. I want metallic. Oh yeah. So this one's nothing but pens and pencils, so I'm going to make this metallic. Oh look, I did. With a pen. I don't like the silver though. We're gonna bronze this up. There we are. Yeah, Jordan, you're in for a treat anytime that Stephen rolls in. He's been a Broadway prop master and is one heck of a hobbyist to boot. All right, let's bronze up some rivets or bolts, or I guess I did these as bolts at the time. And the dog is barking. You know, it's going to look really nice. I always love the red and bronze combination, so let's see how this goes over the red. Since I'm putting this directly over glossy paint, I'm not quite sure what to expect. Normally I'd hit it with varnish, but the reason the show started a couple minutes late today is that I had Like I said, changed my mind about what to do today just before the show. And so I was out spraying these. So they have not had a chance to fully cure, so I'm not putting varnish on them. There we are. So there's our red and bronze. Easily done. Yeah, and Kelly, using the Sharpies for the trim of your Adeptus Titanicus sounds like a brilliant idea. Yeah, it's great for any of the little chaosy bits, since they're all filigree these days. But it doesn't have to just be that. I mean, I can just as easily get in here. And let's see. Hooray. Just do it this way. Section a chance to dry. Grab a piece of paper. Notes about the trip to Kubicon. Sharp is actually getting long. Ink doesn't want to draw on paper either. Okay, put the black one in there. Anyway, you get the idea. Doesn't have to stop there though, because these are Sharpie enamels. Headbutt that camera for you, forgetting that I'm wearing a cap today. So I can get in there with pen, and it's going to be gloss, but a coat of matte will absolutely help with that. I can also use my gray if I want dull silver rivets. Or an aged metal. So shiny silver. You know what I haven't tried? I'll try it for the first time right now. I was taking one of my bright Sharpies to do an edge highlight and see how that plays out. We've replaced their usual edge highlighter with Folgers. Let's see if they notice. Meh. Alright. Not that one anyway. So we talked about, since somebody mentioned that there's now a set of weathering pencils on the market. Yeah, again, I'm recommending the Artist Loft Fundamentals watercolor set. Excuse me. And that's these. And I'm literally just going to grab a handful of them. Make sure I have a graphite 2. Yep. Graphite 2B. Good, I have a silver. Yeah, the rest of these are my Artist Loft set. And there's still a ton of them in the cup. But let's talk a little bit about penciling. I look at my browns over here. Green, thank you. All right. Grab a few additional colors. Let's start by putting that anywhere. I'm treating this much the same way I would a brush if I were trying to do spot application here of some muddy bits. Must give a focus. So let's make it a little less subtle. All that is going to be too light. I'm just actually going to bring some white straight into this and show you guys something fun. So I'm going to white on top of all of this brown, and then burnish them together a bit. If it's not burnishing to your satisfaction, you can, of course, get it wet. These are watercolor pencils. It's kind of the idea. And yes, these are the watercolor pencils I picked up at Michael's. Artist Loft is their brand. And yeah, I think I paid $5 or $10 for a whole big old set of them that I've been using for a long time. Long enough, in fact, the price may have changed, but they're still not expensive. And they will last you forever. All right, so this is a graphite 2B pencil. And these are fun because much like the Sharpie pens from earlier, I can take this and either use it to get that bright graphite color as opposed to the dark iron paint or metallic iron pigment. This is much closer to the metallic iron pigment, which is a graphite. So I can do a whole surface area. Like so, and I get that nice dull metallic look. But where I think this truly excels, and I'm going to grab a piece I just happen to see sitting on my desk. And let's say I've got a ladder. Ooh, do I have the ladder? Oh, I've already done it to the ladder. But that's all right. I can do it to bits of this from the, obviously this is a bit from the Stampa, a little gun that goes on its shoulder. Just getting started on that, but I can, for the moment, add some edging. So I'm going to get the inside edge of this, where people would be crawling up. Get the top of it gently. You don't normally get weathering that's worn down to actual metal on a lot of these models, at least not everywhere, but in spots, yes. Now what I can do is get on the top of the steps here, edges of them. There we are. See if I can get that, make that visible for you. Let's see. There you go. So now what I've got is that little bit of shine going up the ladder where they would be stepping. A little bit of shine here. And I can come in and add that, obviously to the edge of the hatch. Some of the mechanism. Little spots on the top. So I can certainly get my chips in there that way too. All right, so let's put the focus back. Oh, damn, more chatter. What do you got? Hey, so we've got a question from Avid about the mech paints. Let's see what we can do here. Durability compared to other acrylics. Well, they are durable hobby acrylics. I would never say that they are more or less durable than anything else because I don't know how you're going to be applying them. That makes a big difference. But I'm painting this truck entirely with the mech and, well, entirely secret weapon paints. This is 100% secret weapon. And it's durable enough to put up with my weathering techniques. It's durable enough for me to put solvents over it, and all the rest of that. Yeah, I'm very, very pleased with the durability of the paint. Let's see, what was the other question here? Are they based around Reaper? No, in this case, very much not. The mech line is the first line that we're making entirely in-house. Reaper did help me develop the weathering line, provided me some very valuable training, but is not able at this point to continue to manufacture paint for me. So this is all in-house. This is using some of the same base formulations because there's not a lot of acrylic base variation, and they happen to have good taste in their acrylic paint. But this is also an entirely different pigment set than they're using. This is a high solid line of acrylic colorants that, as far as I know, is unique to market at this point. I'm just not bragging about it because I want to make sure that it's well received before I start, trying to show off. But so far, I'm very pleased with the coverage and results and durability. What do you thin them with for airbrush? Water. Just water. That's it. I only ever use water. The recipe for, in fact, I'm going to switch this back over here. Your recipe for acrylic paint is some combination of acrylic vinyl and latex base, water, sometimes talc as a matting agent, or a different matting agent. Talc is the most common. A surface tension breaker, so some kind of flow control, and then water. So you don't need to add anything crazy to it. I generally recommend against the use of additives in your acrylic paint unless you're doing something very specific. For instance, if you're going to be doing a lot of freehand lettering, fantastic. That's the most perfect time in the world to put dry time reducer in your acrylics. It's going to make them more fluid. It's going to make it take a lot longer for it to dry. And that's great for something like that. But otherwise, no, I add water, just water. I may add a drop of isopropyl when I'm airbrushing, but only a drop, and that's specifically to break surface tension again when I'm trying to spray very translucent layers. Yeah, let's see. Yeah, replacing solvent paints is a great plan. It's part of the reason I'm not using enamels the way that I used to. I definitely prefer oils, and I've got oils on my desk, so we're going to play with that a little bit today, assuming there's enough thinner still in there. Otherwise, I've got to run out and grab that, and that's okay. It didn't come back in here yet. I took it to Kublicon. All right, well, I hope that answers your questions about the mech colors. If there's something you'd like to see, obviously I can reach a set from where I'm sitting, so always happy to show off the paints. And these are my favorite questions. This is my favorite part of this is, you know, random questions from folks out there, making sure that I'm talking about what you guys want to know. But all right, let's add some more chippies. Highlight this a bit. And highlight that one a bit. Noise is not optional. And then I'm going to get cheeky olive ocean blue, dark blue, ivory black. I'm gonna be a cheeky monkey. Black pencil. Oops. Way to break your pencil, Justin. Big scratch. White pencil. Highlighted scratch. Oh wait, it's a little heavy-handed. Oh no, it's not. Because they're watercolor pencils. It's like magic, only totally different. All right. Let's see what other useful things I can pull out of my hat today. Yeah, the technical pencil really is still my favorite of those tricks, though. Never be able to thank Jason quite enough for cluing me into how the ILM team did this. Shiny, shiny. Avid, thank you very much. Yeah, we look forward to seeing that order. And yeah, the mech line does have a very slight satin to it, but very slight. The high solid pigments knock that down a lot. But in this case, I did not add matting agent on top of that, so there's no additional talc in there at this point. The next line. Oh, the next line. The next line is in development as we speak. So it's an airbrush line that will actually be airbrush ready paint and not paint with water in it, because that's dumb. Don't want to sell you water. You have your own water. And I have this thing about ripping off my customers. I just don't like it. All right. Put a flash off of there. I need to cut that. I appreciate that these things are still coming out of the mold pretty well after all these years. All right. Every time I ask for a set, the crew's like, wait, the what? Because we don't sell them, so it's just this mold sitting somewhere in the warehouse where I'm like, no, you gotta find my random crap. Go get my random crap. My Micron got put back, so I'm gonna grab my Micron pen again. Yep. Do some panel lining. Yeah, this is a funky glossy paint. No wonder I've never used it before. But it's yellow. That's what matters. Thick and chunky paint. Wow. This stuff is too chunky for me to freehand on here. By freehand, I mean I'm gonna draw a little skull with a pen. Yeah, it'll do. Not great, but it'll do. Little bug-eyed skull. All right. So some handle lines. Let's see what else we can do here. Do I have thinner in here? No, I don't. So I'll pause and I'll get some. But I do have pigments, a whole host of pigments sitting right here. So let's look at pigments on this. So one of the questions I get asked a lot is how I would make mud. And I'm always cheeky about it because there's a lot of kinds of mud. And mud on Mars is going to be very different than mud in Vietnam or mud from Kursk or anywhere. And one of the best examples of that is that, with the exception of the black, let me make sure I'm right about this, and the blue, with the exception of the black and the blue, all of these pigments are just dirt, just mud from somewhere. So we have a lot of options, obviously. So the first question I try to ask myself when I'm starting to do models is, what is the environment? Where are they going to be fielded? Where are they? Or where have they been? Because all weathering is the interplay between the subject and its environment. So if they're going to be in a yellow desert, great. There's my color scheme for weathering. Anything else that I want to do becomes accent weathering, and I can do whatever the heck I want in that case. If they're fighting on Mars, okay, great. I'm going to need some reds and some grays. And the nice thing about that is when I'm putting models on bases, let's click over. When I'm putting models on bases, it's very easy at that point to integrate the model to the base simply by getting its feet dirty. I'll make a wash, I'll put on the feet. If I've got snipers, I put a little bit on the knees. There's no need to get carried away unless your guys are actually slogging through mud and crawling through mud, but that's not likely. The other thing is that if you've got flyers, let's say I'm playing Imperial Guard, I've got all my guys, they've got all muddy boots. What I'm going to do is also take a wash and put that on the canopies, maybe around some of the intakes on my Valkyries and things like that. Land speeders, vehicles of any kind, it doesn't matter, because even if they're up in the air, they're now integrated with your ground troops because they're obviously flying through the same environment. So the dust on the ground is still going to get onto the plane. At some point they landed, they're flying through dust clouds, whatever. You can integrate the armies that way just by paying attention to the weathering. Pew. Avid, no, I'm not sure. To tell you the truth, I'll have to take a look at that. Not sure why the pricing would work out that way. Certainly not supposed to. Thanks for letting me know. But all right, let's, in this case, I'm just going to play with color because I want to take that one and this one and do pretty much the same thing to them. These are all port side panels. All right. So let's pick a couple of colors. Set these aside. And I am, in fact, going to go for more of a yellow desert. And to get that, I'm going to keep violet off to the side here, just for some accents later. But I'm going to take burning sands, dark yellow, yellow earth, and terracotta. And make isopropyl washes out of those. Alright, the vast majority of my brushes are still outside because I took them to Kubla Khan, but that's alright. I have entirely different bins full of brushes. Who could guess that I would have so many brushes? Oh wait, probably all of you. Alright, here we go. Mixy, 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 mixy. Grab a towel. Yeah, here's another tip, thinking of making paint. If you've ever got a paint that you need to matte up a little bit, you can actually take a bit of talc and a bit of water, mix them up in a cup like this, and then very slowly add little amounts to your paint until you have the coverage and density that you need. It will matte it up for you a bit. You're going to need to mix that really well, of course. When we do it, we shake those cans for several minutes at a time. All right. I'm going to start terracotta. There we go. Zoom in a bit. Haha. Once again, like magic, only different. All right, so I've got my terracotta. Where am I going? Get the rivets. All right, I've got to finally take the hat off before I keep bumping you guys to death. Workbench Wednesday is not meant to be the Blair Witch Project. You'll also notice, possibly, if I can get it in focus for you again, it's about as good as it's going to get, that they are flowing differently because this one is a gloss and the other one is a matte. So when I'm doing things like panel line washes, I will want to make sure that my model is glossy because it ensures that the pigment flows into those recesses. Nice heavy coverage here. All right, so right now they're the same. We're going to keep it that way. Get to dark yellow is what I would put over the top of that. Thin stuff. Put it there. All right, so that's the dark yellow. Start over to yellow earth. And the consistency of your alcohol paint here is entirely up to you. I mean, it really is application specific. I've made it pretty chunky before when applying really heavy things like old mud and really heavy rust. And this one's pretty heavy. last but not least, the burning sand section. And yes, if you were wondering, getting to name these things is one of the most fun parts of the job. All right, that one's still very wet. This is where it should go, where it should go, where it should go. Nice and heavy right there, though. Let's put some actual thick old stuff on there. Thick here. And I mean thick. You can actually see it chunky on the brush. Clean that off. One spot here, 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 there. Blow on these for a couple of seconds to dry them off. Oh, Stephen, don't make me think about product testing right now. I'll be sad. Actually, that's not entirely true. I've been new product samples sitting next to me that make me very, very happy. We have a new product line coming very, very soon. And I'm not saying that it's pre-painted bases. But it's pre-painted bases. It's totally pre-painted bases. For the same price as resin or close to. But painted. And textured. And awesome. Alright. So this is dry now. And I'm going to correct the zoom and focus. All right, so, wow, that is glossy. So this is so glossy you can't see anything. Diffuse the light by moving it out. There we go. This is the same color set between the two pieces. As near as I could, I got the weathering aligned between the two pieces. But you'll notice the very bright burning sands doesn't even register on the yellow. So while I would start with environment, by default, it is important to keep in mind the colors that you're going to be working with. And yeah, Stephen, I know you're all about product testing. So I would come back on this one and do something different. Focus more on the yellow earth, heavier. And yeah, Jordan, I'm talking to a number of artists right now about the artwork I would need from them in order to make their bases a reality. We'll be bringing that to Kickstarter just as soon as I have the first few pieces of art and commitments from the artists to stand by and keep producing art. Finish the cost analysis hopefully this week. But I've been waiting for proof of concept that is now sitting next to me. Prop that up a little bit because I want to keep it in the bottom edge here. Yeah, my goal is to make it pretty much the same price as the resin. We'll see. Well, like I said, I'll know this week if that's going to be the case. But at the moment, it looks good. I've done all of the glue testing on the material. I've glued it. I've drilled it. uh, I've left it in the car so that it got too hot, much too hot. It survived that. Without an enamel coat when you're finished, it can be a little UV sensitive, but I figure most people aren't leaving their models directly in the sun or under black light for an extended period of time. And if they have a model on it, they've probably varnished it. Since you're going to be gaming with it. All right. Well, hey, Jess. Thanks for tuning in. It is funny now sharing a studio space with someone for the first time in so long, because every now and then we'll scare the heck out of each other simply by existing and making a noise. Neither of us is used to having anybody nearby, and so you're like, oh, hey, what, job? My house has been invaded. There's ninjas. All right. So this is the similar treatment, but this time I focused on the yellow earth. And at this point, it's all starting to look a little cakey because I've been applying the pigment so heavy-handed. And I would not normally do that, particularly not all wet bloody over here. So I can actually scrape some of this off. But what I'm going to do is come back with the blue and use that as an accent color on both. Again, to show you how very different the effect can be. And that's why on the very rusty Orc Stampa that I'm doing for that Nova Open Charitable Foundation raffle, I used actually this blue. I've used all of these pigments, of course, but this blue features heavily. It's a great little standout color, not just for verdigris, but for cheating. So I'm going to load up my brush, put some of these rivets. I'm also not saying that I have taken pictures of bathroom fixtures when I was alone in a public toilet, but I have, as recently as yesterday. I was like, ooh, verdigris, that's pretty. Also a reminder that brass and ammonia don't play well together, no matter what people tell you, because chemistry doesn't care about opinion. So I do not recommend ammonia-based airbrush cleaners either. Remember that your airbrush is mostly brass. And oh, sure, it might be coated brass for now. But all it takes is a little crack in that coating. Sunny's ammonia on your brass. Well, the only airbrush I've ever bought that actually says that it will void your warranty is the Grex. The user manual does actually specify that if you Put ammonia through your brush or an ammonia-based cleaner. It voids your warranty, and it's not their problem. They do not replace brushes for brass flashing. All right. Blue over there. And yeah, Jordan, I know exactly how that works. And there's a great story. My buddy, I barely know the guy, but a guy I worked with for a long time, and had known for years, married a classics major whose mother was an English professor. And he was absolutely insistent with her that the word was, in fact, paratagem. Because just look at it. The word is paratagem. It is, of course, paradigm. Because English is dumb. And mean. We have such a mean language. How would you be like this language? It doesn't even make sense. Even the rules don't make sense. All right, that'll do. So we'll wind up looking at these two pieces again when they dry off. Quick sip of my drink. And then we'll get a look at the yellow one for a minute. How do you mispronounce portcullis? How do you say it? Huh. How about that? Been saying it wrong for years. All right. Well, things you learn when you're painting. Let's see here. Here we are. So here we are with the wrong way. There we go. So this was mostly the yellow earth pigment, and you can see though, very subtle, how the blue verdigris gives us a nice standout here. So you can also obviously, pick a little pop color, and remember, let's get that off of my surface here. Look at that. Back down into the recesses with you. And here, because I'm just dabbing it on, it all looks a bit drab. Sploochy. We can fix that. Hey, look. Subtractive technique with thumb. Start selling weathering thumbs. Watch. Right next to my scenic cement bottle, which of course is PVA and water. Things would be so much easier if I felt good about ripping off my customers. Alas, I cannot sell you a weathering thumb. I would be embarrassed. Sad for myself. All right. Voila. Oh, and I'm looking at the wrong screen. What we got? Hey, Greg. Welcome, welcome. It's good to see you here, as always. All right, what else have we got? Other than my hair bugging me, because I plan to keep it in a hat. Let's play with some of this. I've got the colors out in front of me. This is one of the plates from the Stampa that I'm not using. And in this case, it has a little bit of color on it, a little bit of the orange down here, and a little bit of brown up here. You can see a little transition, but not much. So I'm going to play with some pigment techniques today because I want to. Like I said, when I got started this morning, I was like, I just want to go have some fun. That's what I want to do. I just need to follow up on some of our new releases. And Greg, you'll be pleased for this one since you missed it earlier. I was not previewing yet, but I definitely did not spill the beans that we are definitely not doing pre-painted bases. So Secret Weapon pre-painted bases. Be branding those shortly. We'll be having a Kickstarter hopefully in July. And fulfilling before Christmas. Yeah, we are definitely not doing pre-painted bases. Exactly. They will be textured, not just flat, boring things. I'm actually going to get the black out here. And I want a pot of white. I'll show you guys how to do a burn effect. It's fun. Yeah, I'd hoped to start previewing the bases actually at Adepticon this year, but we waiting on a patent application. When you're doing something like that, you wait for your patent application. All right, let's see. I prefer holding you this way, so that's the bottom. As simple as that. Where do I want to hold it? I want to hold it over here. Okay, that's the bottom. All right, here we go. Old Rust starts with violet. I'll do my burn right through here, so I'm gonna make this area all burned out, so it actually has the scorch effect. Start a little bit of pigment. This is the violet pigment. Stippling, of course, not brushing, because isopropyl is exceptionally good at stripping models. Oh, Jordan, this will be a separate line of bases. Some of the same designs. For instance, the piece we've been testing next to me is Silent Halls. But there will be a lot of unique designs in this set. So some of the big chunky things like Runic Mountain, not going to happen. We do have some product limitations they'll be working in, which means largely new designs. And that's why I'm reaching out to so many of my favorite artists. Is I'd love to be able to say, you know, hey, we've got a Jess Rich line of bases, a Roman Lapat line of bases. You know, pick an artist in our community whose work you admire, and yeah, I'd love to do it. Got to show. I talked to Matt DiPietro at Adepticon about it. Got to show him the proof of concept at KublaCon. In his case, he's not familiar with the digital art software he'd need to do this, but his wife is. So we're looking at a collaborative project now, and I think that's going to be tremendous. Like, you know, they'll work out a couple of designs together. Heck yeah. That's even more exciting to me than just Matt's bases. Get to have some fun. Yes, the bases will definitely look good when you add plants. All right. Yeah, and I love seeing what you do with the blasted wetlands sets. Jess, the pieces you've done so far have just been incredible. Also picturing that Kingdom Death piece on one. Yeah, Phoenix Dancer. That was a great piece. All right, so just with the pigment, I've got some additional interest. It's a little heavy there. Let's clean that up. So now, I'm just going to add a couple more spots of color. And then I want to show you guys the burnout technique, because I don't believe I've ever shared that on video before. And it's one I really enjoy. All right. Oh, I'm enjoying myself, so I've got to add a little more color. This is the burning sands at this point. I'm going to use this just for a couple of spots of color. Okay, I need that to dry completely before I do the burnout trick. So I'm going to set the other pigments aside. Grab black and white here. I've got my white constituted. I'm going to reconstitute the black. This is a dry pigment, alcohol-based paint. I may have to throw pigment to the canvas today too. I haven't painted a rust canvas in a long time. Feeling the need. Need to dig out some of the other rust studies and see if anybody wants them. Then again, pretty much everything in my cabinet is about to get listed for sale as soon as I find time to take photographs. So, all right, so here's my rust. Not super happy with the section here, so I can knock that down a bit. I'm just gonna get some isopropyl off of one of these. Knock it down. Knock it down. Knock it down. Knock it down. There we go. Dried up. Happy enough with this because of what I'm going to do over the top of it in a couple of minutes. And the first thing I'm going to do is load up some black. All nice and heavy through here. Heavy, heavy, heavy. Loading up on the pigment too. Heavy black. While it is wet, what was what? What? I don't even know. Jordan seeing things. It's pigment. All right, so that's going to take some time to dry because it's so wet. And this is an important reminder too with pigments, particularly when you're making washes out of them. Doesn't look like much at the moment. We're going to give it a few seconds. Still very, very wet, but you can already see the color starting to come through. Grab my metallic iron pigment for the final trick here, because that's what's going to bring this to life. It's so wet right there. Well, I know to see some of those bases, you can hit her Facebook art page, Brush Misters, and in the gallery there, you'll see some of that. Also did one very recently for her Patreon. And yes, that was definitely not a pre-printed base sample that I was just waving around in front of you. That was a proof of concept, though, because that's not the textured one. Oh, no. No, that's just color testing. All right, that is good enough. Dry enough, anyway. Get the focus where I want it so you can't see. Boop, boop. I guess it already was. So, here we are. Let's get the light back on this. It is not as shiny. So I've got some color interest and variation. It was a fairly simple piece before. We didn't have a lot of highlight or focus. Excuse me. Whereas now, between the black and the white, I get that nice burned out section through here where the metal is pulled up. I get some nice color variation through there. And what I'm going to do is take my metallic iron pigment. Oh, you missed it, Stephen. Well, I definitely won't show it again then. All right. But that's an old proof of concept. I have not unpacked the stuff from KublaCon yet. So I'm going to just dip my finger into the metallic iron pigment. Scrape off the excess. Put a little dab on my towel. And then I'm going to use my finger and very gently and then not so gently burnish on some metallic. It's also a spot where I can use that pencil if I really want to hit it. What I'm going to have now is a lot more visual interest than I started with. I will get my 2B pencil here. Close my pigment before it's too late. All right. There we are. Now you can see that metallic sheen to it as well. I can bring that up or down a bit with a little extra pigment. And yeah, I probably will absolutely need to throw pigment at canvas today. For reasons. But yeah, it is worth remembering that once you mix this into a wash, you've still made a dry pigment solvent-based paint. So you can still actually paint with it. But that's all I got for now. Unless you guys have some questions for me, that is the full extent of what I have for you today. And it looks like, because I was using the ISO so heavy up here, we did get a bit of silvering. And I would knock that back with a bit of dry pigment. Actually just take some straight dry pigment and just brush it in there gently. Just in those spots. But for this one, yeah, pretty happy with how it turned out as our piece of burned out rusty metal. But yeah, you can definitely see the silvering right there. We can fix that. But otherwise, I might even just have to find a place to put that on the stampa. Oh, I do have a ladder, see? That would work. So yeah, talking about the ladders is once I paint this one up to go onto the stampa, it looks like it goes that way. I will come in on the edges here and hit it with a pencil, hit a few spots. Just like so. And that way you get that look of a weathered stair. Jordan is asking, so what role does the isopropyl alcohol play on the paint then? Just as a thinner, or in this case, I'm just using it to create the pigment washes here. But the pigment wash is a paint. Nothing else but a reminder of that, that you are making a paint and you can do things with it other than little spot applications when you're doing this. The thing to be careful of, again, is that isopropyl is really good at stripping paint off of acrylic. Take one of the worky panels here I'm not using. So this has been primed and dry brushed. This is 99% isopropyl. So I don't know, you're supposed to soak it in purple, green, simple power stuff for 24 hours. And it's only, $18 a jug or something, and whatever, you've got it under your sink, and you could even use acetone on metal models, or freaking brake fluid, and no, just no, just no, 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 just no. Stripped. No more paint on it. I mean, that's all well and good. Let's find something a little more painty. What have I got? What have I got? What have I got? Let's prove a point about the awesomeness that is isopropyl. I have powers you cannot imagine. All right, here we go. Piece that I need to repaint anyway for a vehicle I've got over there. It is not only varnished because it was one of my gaming pieces, so we've got primer, airbrushing, varnish. This is a fun piece, originally sculpted by Jeff Wilhelm for one of my commission clients, and Bill. Yeah, he got his permission to use it in our wash advertising, and then later for my own Krieg Army, which this was from. So here we are. Little. Just gonna let that sit. Taking the dust off already makes it look better. Who could guess? And yeah, I was just talking about the pigment washes being a paint. To remind folks to, just think about it a little differently. Anything that you can do with paint, you can do with the pigments. In fact, there was a great moment at a Gen Con years ago. Jim Wapple was there painting for Wild West Exodus, and they had a new armored train car that they released. And apparently, didn't bring him paints or brushes. So he stops by the booth, and I didn't know any of this at the time. We didn't make paint at the time, so he asks for a set of my pigments, just a few of them. So I hand him a few of the pigments, and he wanders off, and somebody comes by a couple hours later and says, hey, you might want to go check this out, because Jim Waffle is over there painting a model using nothing but spit, his fingers, and your pigments. So if you get a chance to see the painted version of the Wild West Exodus train, except for the second day when he did the detailing, it was painted with spit and dry pigments and fingers. This one is tacky, but not coming off yet. Well, there's a lot of varnish on this one. So I would want to let that sit for just a minute or so. But yeah, that's really the power of ISO. I've got a jug of it outside that I throw pieces into. But I'll let that sit like, I make a cup of coffee, maybe 5 minutes, and then come back and I'm done. Really nothing to it. And yes, Jim is a paint witch doctor. I also have a fun when we did the weathering paint line. He picked up a set at Adepticon and wanted to paint a piece of terrain for me, which was great. So he turns back, or hands in this the Jersey barrier, or not the Jersey barrier, the junk barrier with the fuselage on it. And I noticed that he'd freehanded 54 on the side, and it's beautifully done, of course. But as we were sitting there looking at it, someone pointed out that he only used my paints, and there is no red in that line. So Jim took my paints, mixed up a red, and then colored with it. I was like, yes, of course you did, Jim. Of course you did. Come here, you. And you can see already that just a tiny bit more time in the ISO would clean that off. It's also how I clean off my mats. It's how I clean off my desk. All of the paint will come off of here with ISO. Even this huge section of black paint over in the corner of my mat. I'll wind up cleaning it off with ISO. It works. It's amazing. And yeah, Jim and I are definitely finger painting brothers. So much of my weathering involves applying acrylic paint, dabbling it with my fingers, removing it with my fingers, applying it with my fingers. Just another tool in the box. Voila. It's getting clean. All right. The magic of isopropyl. Today with some pencils, some fun rust and burnout. Played with pens. Looked at colors for weathering. We had some fun. Answered some questions about the mech line of paints. And yeah, I look forward to doing this again next week. Hopefully you'll be there. As a reminder, please remember to like, subscribe, click the bells and whistles, all the things you need to do to make sure that you're keeping up with Secret Weapon. And yeah, and Miniature Mayhem, thank you. I'm glad it was an informative live stream. The best thing to do, if there's something you'd like to see, leave a comment, send an email to get at me on Facebook, something you need, however you need to reach me. Let me know what you would like to see. Answering the questions today about the paint was great. Answering your questions really is my favorite part of this job. Well, if nothing else, it means that I'm doing a broadcast that someone wants to see. So until next week, happy hobbying, folks. Enjoy from everyone at Secret Weapon Miniatures. Always a pleasure to be here with you, and I look forward to doing it again soon.